The United Nations says intense diplomatic activity is underway to try to prevent the conflict from spreading. Secretary General Antonio Guterres today said he and the UN's Mideast envoy are engaged with key parties in the region and internationally. Guterres says a two-state solution is the only way to bring peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
It's time to end this vicious circle of bloodshed, hatred and polarization. Israel must see its legitimate needs for security materialized, and Palestinians must see a clear perspective for the establishment of their own state realized.
Guterres also warned that with Gaza now under Israeli siege, the already grim humanitarian situation there will deteriorate exponentially. For more analysis on this, let's bring in Ghaith Al-Omari. He's a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He was a Palestinian negotiator at the 2000 Camp David Summit and the 2001 Taba Summit in Egypt, and he joins us now from Virginia. Ghaith, tell me, more than 1,000 people have died in just 3 days of fighting. Israel has declared war. Many people were surprised by these developments. How surprised were you?
Extremely surprised. I think everyone was surprised. We had a certain analysis of what Hamas was thinking of the situation on the ground. Hamas surprised everyone. First and foremost, the Israeli military and intelligence community, but really all observers. We were surprised with the developments, but also I have to say, personally, I was surprised with the brutality that we saw. Hamas is a terrorist organization. That's not news. Yet the very intentional murder of civilians was very shocking. And of course, we knew, and Hamas knew, that this is going to bring very heavy retaliation by Israel. So the whole situation is both surprising and shocking.
And that heavy retaliation you mentioned has already begun. Israel's army claims they now control areas near Gaza. How might this alter the situation?
I think what we're starting to see right now is only the opening scenes in what will be a much longer war. I think Israel right now is trying to clear some of these areas in preparation for a ground invasion, which by its very nature will be prolonged and will be bloody. I have to say, while I do hold Hamas responsible for starting this, at the end of the day, that does not absolve Israel from its duty to also minimize civilian casualties, which sadly will occur anyways, given the nature of the terrain and the population density in Gaza.
Let's talk about the civilians in the Gaza Strip. We know that it's very difficult for these people to leave, to go anywhere. Where can residents of Gaza seek refuge?
Nowhere. That's the tragedy. I mean, to be fair, the Israelis have been warning people in the border areas of Gaza to go deeper into the Strip. There are some UN installations that they can stay in. But these are very limited installations. At the end of the day, the only option that Gazans will have is to go through Egypt. Yet Egypt has today made it very clear, had informed Israel, had publicly said that they will not allow a refugee flow into Egypt, and they warned Israel from putting civilians into Egypt. So the Gaza population, the Gaza civilians, will be stuck in Gaza itself with nowhere to go.
Pretty grim prediction from somebody like you who knows the situation really well. What could the implications be for the broader region, for the Middle East, if the situation deteriorates further, as you seem to suggest it most likely will?
First of all, I genuinely hope that I'm wrong. Yet, if things continue the way I predict they will continue, certainly we will see two different levels of regional reactions. One relates to security, one relates to diplomacy. On the security front, I think everyone right now is closely observing what Iran and its proxies will be doing. This earlier today, we saw an infiltration from southern Lebanon into northern Israel. It was rebuffed. Yet we are looking to see, would Hezbollah come in? Would other Iranian proxies, be it in Syria, Iraq, even in Yemen, the Houthis, will they come in? That's one of the reasons why the U.S. sent an aircraft carrier to the Eastern Mediterranean. We're also observing, maybe with less concern, but certainly observing what's happening in Jordan and Egypt. Hamas and others will try to create instability. Yesterday in Egypt, a policeman killed 2 Israelis. In Jordan, I see the Muslim Brotherhood calling for demonstrations. So that's of concern. Now, if you zoom out and look at diplomacy, We also are looking at two different things. First of all, we know that there were Israeli-Saudi talks. Right now, they are frozen and will be frozen for a while to come. The real question is what would do the Arab countries that have peace with Israel, mainly the Abraham Accord countries, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, etc. How will they act? Today, we saw statements from the UAE, from Bahrain, condemning Hamas. However, if things go on, if we see increasing civilian casualties, these Arab governments will be in a very difficult position vis-a-vis their own publics, which remain supportive of the Palestinians. So we're looking forward, unfortunately, to a very tense security situation and very unstable diplomatic situation.
Do you think a diplomatic situation is possible at this point? I mean, you served as a special advisor to the Palestinian Authority during those Camp David talks. Is a diplomatic solution possible at this point?
At this point, no. I mean, look, in the long term, I believe the only possible solution is a two-state solution. That's the only way that the Jewish people can have their own state and the Palestinian people can have their own state. But in the short term, given the anger, given the bitterness that we see, frankly, given the domestic politics we see among Israelis and Palestinians, Israel until 2 days ago was a divided country. The Palestinian Authority, which rules the Palestinians, has an approval rating in the single digits. They cannot engage in diplomacy. Today, the best that we can hope for, once the fighting stops, is to rebuild confidence. You rebuild confidence through creating small areas of cooperation, be it economic, security, environmental, etc., and hope that this will start shifting the trajectory. But there is domestic homework to be done. The Israelis who are still governed by the most right-wing, most hard-run Israeli government since Israel's creation, needs to have a more moderate government, and the Palestinian Authority needs to work on its popularity and credibility by dealing with its corruption, by dealing with its lack of democracy, etc. So both we need cooperative dynamics between the two countries, but also we need a lot of domestic work to be done. And I think the international community can put both the Palestinians and Israelis in this direction. But this is only after the fighting stops. Today, unfortunately, I think the voice of reason will not be heard.
Not that day today. Thank you so much. That was Ghaith Al-Omari. He's a senior fellow at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy and former Palestinian negotiator. Thank you so much.